Well, good evening, everyone. It's September 2nd, and we'll kick off our Thursday C4 meeting. Welcome. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mayor Hodson will be joining us. He'll be a little bit late, but he'll be joining us later on. And so that brings us to the minutes. Is there any changes, amendments, or a motion to approve the minutes as is?
So moved.
Okay. Mayor Drinkwine made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I see Mayor Kaiser made the second. Any amendments, discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Thank you. Our meaty item for tonight is the transit discussion, and I will let Chris introduce this topic.
Sure. So
Chris, why don't you introduce yourself, and you're sitting in for Trent today, right?
yeah, so go easy on me. Chris Lyons with Clackamas County Government Affairs, trying to navigate our meeting tonight. And the main topic we have for the next hour and 15 minutes is transit. And this has been a super important topic that C4 members have been really interested in focusing on over the past year or two. Tonight's presentation is think of it as more of a one-on-one, a high-level conversation to really start things off. And we have all of the county's transit providers here tonight. I'm going to pull them over in a second. And they will be presenting, and the intention of this conversation is to allow for a constructive dialogue about what transit currently exists within the county and what our transit goals are really for each of the jurisdictions within the county. So think of it as what we have and what we want. And like I said, this is more of an introductory discussion. We will have many more transit discussions in the coming months where we can get into more of the weeds on specific topics. And I'll refer you to page 5 in your memo. Staff put together a few questions to help guide the discussion when we get to that point. And so if time allows, this group may want to consider having each jurisdiction take 2 to 4 minutes after the presentations to provide responses to those questions, but I will defer to this group on how we go about that. So with that, let's launch into the presentations, and I suggest we go in the order of how they were laid out in the packet, which means that Trimet is up first, and I will pull everyone over, but starting out with Trimet will be Tom Markgraf and Tom Mills. And I'm asking each of the presenters, as we typically do, to run their own PowerPoints. You should have sharing capabilities to do that.
There we go. Hi, folks. I'm Tom Markgraf. I'm with Trimet, and I'm the alternate member for the Urban Transit Group, or representation. I'm excited to be here because I want to talk about where we've been a little bit, just for the intro, and then turn it over to Tom Mills to talk about what we're doing now and hopefully where we want to go in the future. I was born in Clackamas County, and Clackamas County has changed a lot in my lifetime. I think it's important to remember that. I think it's really important to remember a little bit of the history in all of our lifetimes. Clackamas County was a major timber county in the state of Oregon. It produced, I think, more timber than maybe Douglas County at one point, which was one of the greatest counties to produce timber in the entire nation. It's been a big deal. It's shifted a lot in our lifetime. When I was a kid, The area between Milwaukee and Oregon City was mostly or a lot of woods. I remember my dad shot a deer right over by the Bomber gas station. And that wasn't unusual. You know, that's the way the county was. My dad actually was orphaned when he was about a week old, and he was raised by an older couple. And the gentleman who raised him drove streetcars. And he drove streetcars here in this region for 42 years. And I live in North Portland now, just a few blocks from where that streetcar barn used to be. And he drove a streetcar from North Portland to Oregon City all day long for years. And that's important because Portland, this region, used to have the largest interurban streetcar system in the United States. That line was considered to be the very first interurban streetcar in the entire country, from Portland to Oregon City. So again, that was in our lifetimes. We've seen that, and that's important. Now we're changing. The county is growing tremendously. This region is growing tremendously, and we're in the cusp of a new beginning, where it seems to me that the county and Trimet and the state and all the providers of transit really are going to have to step up their game and really have to move in a vigorous way to meet the needs that are growing and to meet the needs of the global climate change that's got to take place. So just as that is kind of a picture of where I've seen the county in my lifetime and in your lifetimes, I think it's important to have that context because a lot of people are new here. A lot of people don't know that. I see young planners come and say, why aren't they denser? Well, it's happening, and it's happening in front of us today. And so that's what we've got to respond to. So with that introduction, let me introduce Tom Mills. Tom is our lead planner. He's kind of the brain trust over there at Trimet. And he's going to walk us through kind of what I call the ABCs of Trimet. So Tom, take it away.
Thank you, Tom. Two Tom M's in a row. And thank you for that context and background. Again, my name is Tom Mills, and I'm the Director of Mobility Planning and Policy at Trimet, which is really a fancy title for just saying that I lead the planning group at Trimet. I've been at Trimet this October will be 22 years. And so I too have seen a lot of change in the county and particularly the service that we've been providing you. I'm going to share my screen here real quickly. Let's see. There we go. Can everyone see that? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this in presentation mode. By doing so, it means I can't see you if you raise your hand. So just speak up if you need to stop me for something. And I'm going to start with just a background on Trimet overall for the entire region. You know, for some of you who might be new and haven't seen a presentation like this before. So, you know, we serve over 1.5 million in an area of 533 square miles. I won't read off all of these stats here. You can take a look at them. But the major ones are, you know, what I want to point out are the service. We have 84 bus lines in the region, 14 of which run what we call frequent service, which is service that runs every 15 minutes all day long, 7 days a week. When I say all day long, I'm being a little loose there, you know, late at night and early in the morning, not so much, but through the meat of the day, they run 15 minutes or better. Oftentimes they run better than 15 minutes throughout the day. We also have 5 MAX lines, 2 of which come into Clackamas County, the green line and the orange line. And of course, the West Station, which goes to Wilsonville. Let's move on to the next slide. Here's a map of our region. I'm going to show you a more close-up map of the service in Clackamas County. But of course, as you know, actually, it's not just here. It's on the west side of the river too. This is your county area, and you can see the bus lines that serve your area. And actually, you know, remember those bus lines also connect to other areas to the north and to the west. And so it allows you not just to travel within your community, but to travel throughout the region. So in 2019, and I use 2019 numbers right now because we're dealing with COVID, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But using 2019 numbers, we were carrying 96 million rides a year, which is quite a lot. 37% were taken by people of color. 40% of those folks use Max. But we also really focus our service on a lot of areas where there's poverty. 36% of our customers are living at or below 150% of the federal poverty level. That's the level the federal government uses when assessing us for how well we serve people living with earning lower incomes. You can see the English proficiency number there. I believe that is close to average for the region. And you can see the other numbers. You can see that we have not updated these numbers for the most recent census. So we expect actually to see different numbers, but you can see how we compare above. So when we say 37% of our customers are people of color, well, the region is 29%. So we're serving a higher percentage. Same thing with poverty. 36% of our customers are at or below 150% of poverty, but for the region in 2018 was 19.5%. Actually, I take it back about limited English proficiency. We are a little bit below that. One of the interesting slides we always like to show is how we compare to our peers around the country. So the Portland area, metro area, is 24th overall in terms of population. Again, we need to go back and adjust this for the most recent census. But when it comes to transit ridership, particularly boardings per capita, we're 9th. So we're doing much better than other areas in terms of boardings and ridership. When you look at it on a per capita basis. Yes, we're a smaller area, but we like to say we punch above our weight class. So where does the Trimet revenue come from? Some of you may be new to this. If you're an employer, I'm sure you already know that we have an employer payroll tax that you pay to the state. The employer pays to the state, and then the state gives to us. And starting in 2018, with the HB 2017 legislation, a new employee payroll tax was created, and that went into effect in January of 2018. And that is money that the employee pays, 0.1% of their salary, goes to the state, comes to Trimet, and we use those funds to improve service. We have a committee that we work with to develop a plan for how we use those funds. Commissioner Savas is on that committee, as is Dwight Brashear from SMART. And I also work directly with a lot of staff. Also, our revenue comes from fares and state and federal grants, and of course, other sources such as advertising, sale of property, things like that. So Clackamas County, we have, as I mentioned earlier, we have 2 Max lines, both the green and the orange. The West line, as I mentioned, 24 bus lines serving Clackamas County. And something people tend to forget, but we do also provide Lyft paratransit service. I'm sure you've seen the smaller Lyft paratransit vehicles going around the county. What we do is the federal government obligates transit agencies to provide curb-to-curb service within 3/4 of a mile of a bus line. So someone in Oregon City, as long as they live within 3/4 of a mile of a bus line, a Trimet bus line, they can pick up a Lyft paratransit vehicle, or they order a ride, and then that paratransit vehicle will take them within 3/4 of a mile of any route within the entire system. So they could ride all the way to Forest Grove if they wanted to, and we would provide that ride for them. And we do, well, pre-COVID, we were doing, well over 1 million rides a year on Lyft paratransit service. I mentioned earlier the HB 2017 funds. One of the unique things we do with those funds is our committee takes some of the funding that is generated in the Trimet district and we distribute it to smaller providers, especially here in Clackamas County. The picture there is showing the Clackamas Community College Express Shuttle, which is funded with these funds. Some of those funds go to provide what we call last mile shuttles, transit service in areas that aren't very dense and can't really be served cost effectively with a Trimet vehicle, but these shuttles are less expensive. And so therefore it makes more sense cost-wise to provide them with the shuttles. We hand these funds to the county and then the county distributes them to the smaller providers. One interesting addition to that is we also give funds to SMART to run service, extra service from the Wilsonville area into the Trimet district and back. And I'm sure Dwight could talk a little bit more about that. But you can see the Oregon City shuttle and the Clackamas Industrial shuttles, I will believe are launching quite soon. And we have the Clackamas Community College shuttle. And then, of course, as I mentioned, funding for some SMART trips. So we've been busy in Clackamas County over the last 5 years, improving service. I won't go through all of this, but as you see, some of it is improvement to Sunday service. In some cases, we're adding a whole brand new line. Sometimes we're just increasing the number of trips, what we call the frequency or the headway on the line, or even making route changes. So this is the work we've been doing in the last 5 years. Every year we try to, add more improvements every year. And in fact, also these improvements primarily come from long-range service plans that we have. What this is showing you are two maps. One is kind of on the west side of the river. The other one is on the east side of the river. Several years ago, we broke the region up into zones and we did a lot of intensive planning work with folks from the communities as well as the business community and developed these plans. And we're coming along, actually doing a little bit better on the east side of the river. A lot of those improvements have already been put into place. West side of the river is taking longer. The densities are lower, so it's a little harder. We're kind of focusing so far on where we're going to get the most rides, but ultimately we will be getting to those improvements on the west side of the river. Additionally, we were kind of holding off a little bit, waiting for what was going to happen with Southwest Corridor, because that was going to impact, possibly require some changes to what we had planned. But moving forward with those plans, and as I mentioned, the HB 2017 funds have really been a big help to us in trying to make these improvements. So what's coming in the future? As you can see, a whole long list of improvements. These are listed in the plans. Actually, in the immediate future, starting this Sunday, we are going to be extending bus service to Oregon City High School. That bus service today goes to Clackamas Community College. It will still go to Clackamas Community College, but it's going to kind of go around the back way now so we can serve Oregon City High School and the new Myers Road extension. And that starts on Sunday. So that's exciting. And then, once we get through COVID and we can start expanding again significantly, here's the list of all the lines that we want to improve that serve Clackamas County. One of which I want to point out, line 35, McAdam-Greeley, upgrade to 15-minute frequent service. That line runs from Oregon City to North Portland. So I believe it emulates the streetcar line that Tom was referring to. But it's not just about, kind of local bus service. We're also working with folks in Clackamas County staff and Odot and others around the region on other kind of more express style service. So, we will be launching in a year or so our first bus rapid transit line. If you're not familiar with bus rapid transit, the easiest way to think of it is kind of like MAX, but using buses. They have stations, although quite a bit smaller than what a MAX station is, and they run very frequently like a MAX line. They don't stop as often, just like a MAX line, and so they skip stops, and we try to give them as much priority as we possibly can within the lanes to not get stuck in traffic. And, two corridors that are being talked about are both McLaughlin Boulevard and 82nd Avenue. 82nd Avenue, of course, is getting a lot of attention right now, is because the state is looking to transfer ownership of that, at least in the Portland area, to the city of Portland. So a lot of attention on 82nd Avenue, and we hope to have BRT in those corridors in the next so many years. Additionally, and I'm sure all of you are aware that Odot is doing a tolling study, and they're focusing quite a bit on Abernathy Bridge area and having tolls in that area. We have been part of those conversations at least in terms of how to mitigate that if that were to happen. And we have advanced some proposals that would have transit service run on the freeway. But the real trick is, and potentially use bus on shoulder, so potentially run in the shoulder to get around the traffic. But the real question is, well, where's the market? Where are people trying to go to make, we don't want to run a bus line that people aren't going to ride because it's not going to where they want to go. And in truth, the hard part is people are going everywhere. So we want to design bus routes that are actually going to serve the most number of people, knowing that we're not going to be able to serve every single person. Two, that we're really excited to advance towards some modeling with Odot is a line that would go from Clackamas Community College through Oregon City, hop on I-205, and then come off the freeway and go through Tualatin. Actually, we'd go to Tualatin, then hop back on the freeway, go to Tigard, and then to Beaverton. On both ends, we would have the bus run as a local bus line. So you could actually walk to the bus line, get on, and then you get on the freeway to get to where you're going. And then, of course, the other one is a line that would go from Clackamas Town Center along I-205 to Tualatin, Tigard. Again, wanting to, do some local service on each end because, people need to, if we just hop off the freeway and drop people off, oftentimes they're still going to be stuck. So we need to kind of go someplace where they are, take them where they want to go. Additionally, there are improvements that we're making at Trimet that are not just about bus service and the routes and where they go, but other improvements, one of which is looking into zero emission buses. We have some zero emission buses that we've been testing. We started with one brand. We've had a lot of trouble with them and keeping them running. Despite all the hype, some electric buses are pretty darn complicated and they break a lot. But we have a new set that we're looking at, that we're testing, and so far it's going really well. And so we're very excited, and that's the photo you see here. And so that's exciting for us. We're looking at different types of electric buses. So there's what we call battery electric buses. Both the long range where they charge overnight or the short range where they have to, get a zap at the end of the line every time they get to the end of the line. But we're also assessing fuel cell electric buses. These are buses that are powered by hydrogen. You fuel them up just the way you fuel up diesel, but you're using hydrogen. And then on the vehicle itself, the hydrogen creates the electricity that runs the vehicle. Really great possibility there. The biggest problem we have is that you can't hydrogen, the nearest place to resource hydrogen is in Sacramento. So there isn't a lot of hydrogen in the Northwest. So, we're evaluating all these different proposals and trying to figure out what's the most cost effective and can be best for our customers. Additionally, through the HB 2017 funding, we are looking to, we have been expanding the number of shelters out on the system. Now, shelters are always, as with everything, it's always more complicated than you think. We can't just put a shelter anywhere. We need the sidewalk space in order to do it. And we can't block the sidewalk with the shelter. But that said, we might be looking at some new shelter designs that give us a little bit more flexibility about where we can put them, and possibly even replacing our oldest shelters on the system, as well as expanding and putting new ones out in new areas. So hopefully more to come on that.
And
then
Tom,
finally,
Tom, I'm just going to do a time check. And
yep,
if
I
you
think
could
this is
breeze
my
through the
last. I might have one more slide after this.
Thanks.
Sorry about that. So real quick, low income fare program. This is a program for people who earn 200% of the federal poverty level. They can get half price on a single ticket, or 72% off on a monthly pass. Additionally, through HB 2017, we now have a high school fare program for the entire metro area, at least among public high schools. And this is my last slide, and it had to do with COVID. So we are impacted by COVID significantly, largely due to the stay-at-home order. Our ridership is down approximately 50%. If you remember, fares are a big part of our revenue. But also payroll tax is down, not as badly as we had feared. So that's going well. We have decreased our service, though. We are at 90% of what we were at prior to COVID, and we have received federal funding. To be honest with you, the biggest challenge for us right now is we can't hire operators. We're having the same problems that employers are having all over the country, finding enough people to work for us. So that's a challenge, but we're working real hard to solve it. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the county next. So we have Teresa Christopherson and Christina Babcock here.
Oh, here we go there. Sorry.
Oh, all right. Give me just a moment here and I will bring up the presentation. Similar to Tom, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to see you guys when I officially start this, but let me give it a shot. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I'm just here to give a little bit of an introduction for presentations by transit service providers in Clackamas County. It's kind of a big picture overview. Clackamas County service providers include the Mount Hood Express, which is operated. Oh, and I'm sorry, I should introduce myself. My apologies. I'm Teresa Christopherson. I'm the Administrative Services Manager at Clackamas County Social Services, and I'm the long-term project operator for the Mount Hood Express, which is a public transit service operating up in the Mount Hood area. The Clackamas County Social Services also operates the Clackamas County Transportation Consortium services, which focuses on seniors and persons with disabilities. We also have South Metro Area Regional Transit, which is SMART, operating in Wilsonville, Sandy Area Metro, operating in Sandy, Camby Area Transit, South Clackamas Transportation District in Molalla, of course, Trimet, and then the Clackamas Community College Services. The map that you're seeing right now is one that I always enjoy showing because it really shows first how large of an area, how large of a county we are, and how unique it is that we have so many transportation providers working to provide a network of services in the most densely populated areas. When you look at this, the level 1 service areas are areas within a quarter mile of a bus or transit stop. The level 2 service are near an actual bus route. And the level 3 service are services provided by our network of senior centers, which serve seniors and persons with disabilities throughout the county. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of white area on the screen, but those areas do have service coverage through the Transportation Reaching People program operated by Clackamas County. This is another schematic just showing some of the same routes, and again, showing the level of service that we're able to provide countywide. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Christina Babcock, who is the transit coordinator for social services.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Teresa. I'm going to start out by covering Mount Hood Express services. So Mount Hood Express is a service that operates 7 days a week out of Sandy and heads up Highway 26 and ultimately terminates at Timberline Lodge. We have 7 commuter runs that go year round from Sandy up to Government Camp and then Timberline. And then we have additional service during weekends and holidays during the winter recreational season. We also have the Village Shuttle service. That's a deviated fixed route service. It runs 7 days a week as well, 4 times during the day. Amenities on these buses include day passes, ski boxes for the winter recreation season, and bike trailers for the summer season. Over time, riderships experienced a dramatic growth from about 32,000 rides in 2013 to 72,000 rides in 1819. And as you can see, I did much the same as Tom Mills, and I used 1819 numbers for ridership, as during the COVID pandemic, we've seen about a 40 to 60% drop depending on the month in overall ridership. So stiff impact in Clackamas County, that payroll tax has allowed us to do a lot of different things. But for the first funding cycle, we really focused on the expansion of transit service countywide. We were able to get some new vehicles and new infrastructure in place and did some projects with the other small transit providers in Clackamas County, like the fare integration project, where we're looking at what would it take for all of us to get on the same fare system? What would it look like so somebody could get on a bus in Camby and then board a bus to go to South Clackamas and then to Wilsonville with never having to change fare media. And then we also implemented the last mile shuttles. Those kicked off actually on July 12th, just before the end of the fiscal year. And I'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. For the Mount Hood area, we were able to expand service for the Mount Hood Express and the Village Shuttle, purchase some new vehicles. It allowed me to spend more time supporting these transit projects within the county. And then we're going to be able to kick off a transit hub study on the mountain that will be working with the Oregon Solutions team to kind of coordinate between the rest stop relocation up there and getting a site identified for a transit hub where providers could come in and drop off kind of at a centralized location, and then maybe looking at shuttling people up to the different recreational sites on the mountain. Next, Teresa.
I'm experiencing technical difficulties, but I'm working on it. Great. Hold on. Let me go back to the presentation. Let's see if I can get it to go. All right, everyone, this is what you get for having me trying to. Okay, I think we're into the next slide. I'm just going to leave it like this.
Okay. So the Clackamas County Consortium is a partnership between county and local senior centers and community centers to provide that community-based transportation network for seniors and persons with disabilities. We have Hoodland, Sandy, Molalla, Canby, Oregon City, Milwaukee, Gladstone, Lake Oswego, and Estacada as part of the consortium. Additionally, Clackamas County has a program called Transportation Reaching People that provides rides and bridges the gaps between the senior center boundaries and then all of the small transit providers that Teresa mentioned earlier. Rides are paid for all of these program rides are paid for or provided by both paid drivers in the Ride Connection program or center-owned vehicles, and then we have volunteers as well. So volunteers at the county or at the senior centers often receive mileage reimbursement, which is kind of the incentive. And then additionally, a lot of our volunteer drivers are also, older adults, and it allows some companionship between the driver and the rider. And then all of the drivers are screened and receive a certain level of training so we can be assured that people are safe when they're out on the road. And then dedicated dialysis and medical rides focus on the most vulnerable and medically fragile residents of Clackamas County. And we're working on a taxi ride pilot program to kind of extend capacity. With our paid drivers and our volunteer drivers, our Transportation Reaching People program is in a situation where demand still outpaces our ability to provide rides. And so the taxi a taxi provider like Wapato Shores, or, there's many, many others, but Wapato Shores is an example, would allow us to provide more of those really medically critical rides to residents in Clackamas County. Okay, and then last but not least of our programs are these new last mile shuttles. So we have 2 last mile shuttles that launched in the middle of July. One is Oregon City, which you can see the map there on the left. Sorry, they're kind of small, but it gives you an idea that it pretty much covers the majority of Oregon City. It's a long route, but all of these areas were identified as having significant need. So it kind of wraps its way around a residential area, down to the community college, and then up through the heart of Clackamas County offices, both the public services buildings and the elections office and the developmental services building, and then heads back down into the Trimet Oregon City Transit Center, and then ultimately out to Clackamas Heights to serve an area that Trimet also serves, but with long headways. And so we're trying to bridge the gap there and get people some more access to transit service. And then the Clackamas Industrial Shuttle on your right side there is really exactly what its name. It's intended to serve that Clackamas industrial area from 212 down onto Jennifer, which is on the bottom of the map down there. And so we head out of the Clackamas Town Center where the green line is, and Trimet has a handful of lines that terminate there. And then we head down into the industrial area and do a loop, and then head right back up to the town center to allow people better connections to Trimet. All right, so funding sources. This is a pie chart of both the Mount Hood Express and the consortium funding. And so it basically breaks down where all of our funds are coming from to put these services on the road. So you can see there's a pretty good mix of stuff in there. About 40% of total funding comes from state. We have some 5311 in there. A FLAP grant actually provides significant funding for the Mount Hood Express. And then we also have Older Americans Act and 5310. And then we do get some local funds from partnerships up on the mountain, where Ski Bowl and Timberline and Meadows come together to help contribute to that service. And so, looking at the pie chart, it's relatively balanced. And we do still see about 6% of our overall funding come from fares. And so that's an important note, because for the last year and a half, we were fare free to ensure that during COVID, people could ride transportation in the Clackamas County area and with our services and not have any barriers to entry there. So we just reintroduced fares in August. So as Tom Mills mentioned, that they got some relief funding, Clackamas County got relief funding as well, which helped us make up that gap to ensure that we could keep all of our critical services on the road during COVID. I think that wraps it up, and I'm going to turn it over to Dwight to talk a little more about SMART.
All right. Thank you, Christina, and good evening, everyone. Dwight Brashear. I am the transit director for SMART, and we are owned and operated by the city of Wilsonville. We are a department of the city, and we were established now a little over 30 years ago and started our own transit, kind of took our future into our own hands, if you will. And we're funded through, again, much like Trimet and others you'll hear tonight, through a employer payroll tax, and then the employee payroll tax, which is part of the STIF. And then, of course, we are a direct recipient of the federal government. So we receive federal funds, not necessarily for operating, but for capital purchases and the like. And then, of course, state grants where we can get them. A little bit about Wilsonville. We have about almost 21,000 jobs with a population of about almost 27,000 now in the latest census, and an aggregate annual payroll of $1.4 billion. SMART currently operates 9 routes, and this particular line is not quite accurate. But one of our routes is free. So we share a route into Salem with Chariots, and we do charge a fare on that route. The other 8 routes are absolutely free. So you can get from Wilsonville to Canby for free. You can get to from Wilsonville to Tualatin for actually Tigard for free, and hopefully soon from Wilsonville to Clackamas Town Center at no cost. We currently employ 54 employees. We have 35 vehicles. Something I'm most proud of is I've been here 4.5 years. For the last 4 of those 4.5 years, we've been ranked in the top 10 nationally as far as transit providers are concerned. And this is not something that we voted ourselves. This is a national citizen survey. So the folks that use SMART have voted us one of the top 10 in the nation. And so we're very proud of that. We did a customer satisfaction survey just to see if that was supported locally. And we ended up with 4.5 out of 5 stars. So we put a great deal of emphasis on customer service, and it's paying dividends for us. In 2019, we received the System Innovation Award through the Oregon Transit Association, and that was for deploying battery electric buses. All right. All right, so looking ahead, we are in the throes of a intelligent transportation system upgrade. Probably by September, we will have Wi-Fi on all of our buses. And so we can use those buses throughout the city as Wi-Fi hotspots. We offer a free medical shuttle between Wilsonville and Tualatin. We've increased our frequency on most of our routes, and we are just had a meeting today. We are closing in on the first bus on shoulder program for an Oregon transit agency, and we'll begin running bus on shoulder probably November 1st between Wilsonville and Tigard, Bridgeport Center there. So we're excited about that. And as far as I'm concerned, that dovetails very nicely into a program and a project that we're partnering right now with Washington County, Clackamas County, a Ride Connection, and others on a service that would operate from Wilsonville, which stops at Stafford, stops in West Lynn and Oregon City, and then on to Clackamas Town Center, utilizing the shoulder of the I-205. And so we hope to get that started long before they start tolling the 205 is our goal, is to get that service out there up and running. We have an employer Vanpool program that we are hoping to get off the ground here real soon. COVID put the brakes on that. We had the funding in place. Some of the partners were in place right before COVID hit, and we had to pull back on that. So we're working with the local Chamber of Commerce, with some of our larger employers, to make sure that we have vans available for their employees. We use both electric buses and CNG, compressed natural gas buses. We have been for a number of years, and we are expanding our capability on the CNG side while we're adding electric buses as well. We have 5 new CNG powered vehicles on the lot right now, 2 that are waiting to go in service any day now. And then I talked about some of the technology that we're working on, and we are adding real-time e-readers at some of our major bus stops. Yes, and our funding, very important. This is one of our electric buses, by the way. And so about 55%, and it seems to drop a little bit every year because we're trying to, we don't want to put all of our eggs into one basket, but about 55% of our funding comes through the employer payroll tax. And then another 23% of our funding is through the federal government, through grants and the like. And then 21% is from the state, which includes the statewide transportation improvement fund. So we are a very healthy agency funding wise. And so we run a very, very robust service within Wilsonville. And so we're looking for opportunities to expand outside of Wilsonville. So we're working with, as I mentioned, some of our partners. And one of the things that I do want to mention is that we are working collaboratively with the other small providers that you'll hear from. We have a consolidated website that we are hoping to bring online. So it'll be one-stop shopping for our customers. If they go on that website, they'll have all of SMART's information, all of Clackamas County, all of Sandy and Canby and Malala's information as well. So we work very, very well together, and SMART is just happy and proud to be a part of this, this group. So I think that's it for me, and we'll turn it over to, I think, Todd Wood.
Hello, everybody. My name is Todd Wood. I am the Transit Director for Camby Area Transit. I don't think I can follow that very well. We're a much smaller agency than Wilsonville. Camby is about 18,000 folks. We also took over our own ship for about 20 years now. Left Trimet in 2002 and began to operate our own service. As Camby is a much smaller, much more concentrated city, we don't have near the service levels. What we do have is we run a regular service from Oregon City all the way to Wilsonville. We run it 6 days a week, 5 to 10 on weekdays. And then Saturdays, which started in 2019, we run from 8 to 6. That goes all the way to the Bi-Mart in Wilsonville, all the way to the Oregon City Transit Center. It's an exciting service. That service actually connects us with Trimet, with Clackamas County Services. It connects us with Wilsonville. It connects us with Malala. It also connects us with Woodburn, and it connects us with Salem. So we are connected with every partner around us on that one line, which is fantastic. Inside the city itself, we run a paratransit service that serves those who aren't able to use the fixed route service. We have an additional agreement that we made when we left Trimet. We also serve Oregon City with paratransit service. For those who live in Camby but want to get to Oregon City, we will transport folks to work or school or the doctors up in the Oregon City area on our paratransit service. And for the rest of the folks who just like to get around the city, we offer general public dial-a-ride. It's on an as space available basis, and we could take you anywhere in the city between 8 and 6, and then 8 and 6:30 on Saturdays. Heavily utilized service. Last year, I used last year's numbers. Last year, we provided about 60,000 rides. Normally, we're in the 85 to 90, but COVID hit us pretty hard as well. However, CAT remains at 100% service levels. I know many partners did as well. We wanted to make sure that people could get where they wanted to go, so we did not cut any of our service. And I want to shout out to my contractor at the time who made that happen, even though we had employee shortages and it was difficult with a lot of the social distancing measures. We still were able to keep our service levels at 100%. I think the only time we had any issues was during the ice storm, which everybody had issues. So as I mentioned before, we did add Saturday service, and that was funded by the State Transportation Improvement Fund back September 7th, and it's been very successful up to this point. Inside Camby, that's where we, I like the word pulse. We pulse with SMART. We also do so with South Clackamas. You can come in, get off, get on one of their buses in a fairly timely manner. SMART's currently free, which is awesome. So you can ride all the way there. And our service is $1, which is fairly inexpensive. We were fare free up until September 7th. We begin taking fares again, but again, it's only $1, so it's fairly accessible to most folks. All our buses have bike racks. Every single one of them is ADA accessible. And then we're most excited about our new Circulator Route, which hopefully will begin October 4th. Years ago, the city had 2 buses that would go throughout the city on a fixed route basis, but due to the funding issues that we had in 2011 with the loss of the Betsy credits and the loss of 5310 funding that a lot of transit agencies experienced, those services went away and general public dial-a-ride kind of filled in the gap. with the State Transportation Improvement Fund, we're able to bring that service back, not quite to the same level. We're using one bus. It's going to run every 30 minutes or so, and it'll hopefully run from about 5:30 in the morning to 7 p.m. And it'll run 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So that's beginning October 4th. We're just getting the final plans in place for that. So we're pretty excited about that. As far as future plans go, we are on a constant replacement cycle. We've got 4 new buses that we're currently replacing now. We've got a van coming. We're going to look at transitioning some of our dial-a-ride fleet to Ford Transit style vans. They're much more fuel efficient and they're much easier to get in and out of places. We're going to be working on updating our 2017 Transit Master Plan. We were going to update it last year, but with everything kind of shutting down, we just pushed it off. We've got a project with Odot. Odot's going to redo 99E, which we're very excited about. If you've driven down there anytime in the last few months, you'll know it's in dire need. They're going to be pulling out a set of railroad tracks, which we're excited about. And then we're going to take the 10 bus stops along 99E and add shelters, some lighting, and just make them much nicer, much better for people to ride on. And then we're looking for an office. Right now, we rent a small strip mall place next to a vet, and we've been there for about 6 years. We have 17, well, now 20 employees reporting out of this small little office, and then we don't have enough room for all the buses we have. So we have a 2-acre plot behind our current location. We're going to put an office building in, expand our cat yard, and we're excited about that. And then this year, we're going to advance a little bit here. I know we're a little behind on the technology, but we're going to advance to tablets for our dial-a-ride system, allowing much smoother routing, as well as hopefully pushing out the bus to folks. They make apps now where you can pull up the app and see where your bus is, where's my bus type apps, or the transit app. And hopefully we can add our services to that so people can pull it up and see roughly where their bus is. All right. This is our proposed circulator route. As I said, it's going to be about 12 hours a day. We got about an hour break in there, so it spans a little bit further than that. 5 days a week from 5:30 to 7. We are going to make this free. It'll be a free service for our residents. We're pretty excited about it. We've captured, if you look at this map, this is actually most of the original 2 circulator routes. We've captured most of that in one, and we can do this in about 30 minutes. Eventually, we're hoping to expand this a little further, but for now, I think this is pretty exciting. It hits all our major schools. It also hits most of our low-income areas, as well as our minority areas, and the majority of the city parks. So we're pretty excited to put that into place, hoping it'll be successful. As I mentioned again, we are one of the most connected little cities you'll ever find. We meet up with SMART. We meet up with Trimet. We land in Woodburn. You can get to Salem. You can go Oregon City, grab the new Clackamas shuttle. You can just ride on Trimet to take you to the Max, or you can go over to Malala and catch the Malala service. It's really exciting. It's been a great partnership with these folks. I know we meet every week in the Clackamas County side and talk about strategies and how things are going. It's a fantastic partnership and allows people in Camby to get just about anywhere they want to go. As far as our funding goes, we also have a payroll tax. We have kept our payroll tax steady and unchanged for more than a decade. So we're very happy about that. We like to keep it that way for as long as possible. So that's 68% of our funding. We in the city collect it ourselves, as opposed to some folks have, I believe the state collect it. We do this ourselves in-house. The other 23% comes from grants. Fares are this tiny little 3%, and right now it's 0. But it really doesn't add a whole lot. And then our STIF, that funds our Saturday service and soon to be our city circulator. That's about 6% of our overall budget. So the majority is coming from payroll, with our 5311 and 5310 covering up the rest. So that's Camby.
All right, thank you. And next we have Tom Strader from the South Clackamas Transportation District.
Okay, thank you. This is Tom Strader. I'm the district manager at South Clackamas Transit. Thanks for having us tonight. Appreciate the chance to come and talk to you about our transit services. Just a quick overview of our transit system. SCTD has been providing transit service in the South Clackamas County area since about 1989. We're based in Molalla. We serve a large rural district of about 100 square miles, operating 3 routes with service from Clackamas, from Molalla to Clackamas Community College along the Highway 213 corridor, where we connect with Trimet, Clackamas County's Oregon City Shuttle, and the CCC Express at Clackamas Community College. Service from Molalla to Camby, connecting with Canby Area Transit and SMART, which provides further connections to Salem and Woodburn area transit services. And then we have a route serving the city of Molalla that provides residents access to healthcare and shopping destinations in the city, as well as other services around town, including the library, senior center, aquatic center, and so forth. Our downtown service operates as a deviated fixed route. So compared to a dedicated dial-a-ride or a paratransit service, which means that we'll veer off our regularly scheduled route downtown to pick up someone that's reserved a ride. That's a service that we offer to the general public, not just elderly or disabled folks. Right now, we've suspended fares. We're coming back to charging beginning in October. The city route is always free. The routes to Clackamas Community College and Canby will return to $1. During COVID, we've suspended fare payment, and we'll be bringing that back. So you can see, and I think you've gathered from the others' description of transit services, we have a nice, strong network of transit options to get around the region. We have recently opened a new administrative facility. So prior to 2018, we did not have an office that, for example, a rider could come to get transit information. It's been a great presence in the community, and it gives us kind of a focal point for riders to come to and get information about the district. Go ahead, next slide. So future plans, what are we working on? We're really trying to emphasize things that make transit more convenient and comfortable for riders. We've been working on things like stop improvements with updated, rebranded, and highly visible stop signs that just make it easier for a rider to find where they need to catch the bus. We're looking at piloting, in fact, we will be piloting solar powered lighted stop signs, which is really important in a rural environment where you've got you're serving darker roads, and lighting is not the best. We're working on expanding our fleet of passenger shelters on the street. Thanks to the group at SMART, we were able to obtain some of their passenger shelters that they were no longer in need of, and we've been able to refurbish those, paint them, replace glass panels, and we have those available to put out on the street for our riders. Looking at better technology options, better customer information for riders, things like, and you've heard other providers talk about real-time arrival information. So riders can look at an app and they can find exactly when their bus is going to be coming. A real important amenity for customers where maybe you can't provide an extremely frequent service. It's really helpful for them to know when that bus is actually going to be at the stop. With some help from HB 17, we've been able to expand service. We've added service to the Clackamas Community College route, Molalla, and the Canby route. So all 3 routes we've been able to expand service. We have new buses coming with the help of STIF funding. We have any day now, we're expecting delivery of our first low floor bus. Really a nice amenity for folks around the downtown area that maybe have mobility issues. It'll be much easier for them to board and ride transit. We've also recently updated our long-term master plan, our strategic plan that kind of sets our strategic direction for the next few years. We're looking in the process, and I'm really excited about this. We're looking at alternative fuels, and we think that there's some real value, some feasibility in being able to shift to renewable diesel, a 99% renewable diesel blend that could help the district cut our greenhouse gas emissions by between 80 to 85%. We've got some logistic challenges there we need to sort through in terms of delivery and storage, but it looks promising, and I'm excited about that prospect. Next slide, please. And that's an overview of our funding. So similar to other districts, it's a mix of payroll tax revenues and grant funding. We're about 1/3 payroll tax revenues and nearly 2/3 grant funds. Fares do not make up a huge piece of our pie, but they are still an important source of revenue. And I'll close by just reiterating a theme that I think you've heard from some of the other systems. We spend a lot of time and effort on trying to coordinate our services, whether it's from, joint procurements to align technologies, or just making sure that we have schedules coordinated so that someone transferring from one system to another doesn't have to wait. Todd talked about pulsing at the Camby Transit Center. That's something that is hugely important for customers. It makes using transit that much easier for them, and it's really important. And we're going to continue to emphasize integrating some of those services and coordinating our offerings. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Andy Howell with Sandy Area Metro.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just want to start by saying that I sat as an alternate on this committee for a couple of years and then sat at the table prior to Teresa Christopherson. So I thought I would see a lot of familiar faces tonight when I logged in, but there are a lot of new people at the table. So thank you for having us tonight and listening and learning about the many different ways that people get around this great county of ours and ways that we can hopefully continue to work together and improve all of our services. I am the transit director for the city of Sandy, and I'm not going to talk that fast, Teresa. Thank you. We celebrated 20 years of service in January of 2020, just before the big COVID hit about March of 2020. We were standing out in the freezing cold and rain celebrating our 20 years, but it was a really fun celebration. At that time, we were a population of just over 11,000. The new census now says we've moved up to 12,000 plus, I believe, since that 11,000 population on this slide. We have 3 what we call fixed route, although a couple of them are deviated as well, routes here in the city of Sandy. The Sam Gresham route is our real workhorse. In a typical year, about 80% of our ridership comes from that Sam Gresham route. It connects with Trimet, both bus and max at the Gresham Transit Center, and it runs every half hour during the weekday and every hour on Saturday, and then it has 8 runs on Sunday, and those 8 runs are planned to match up with Mount Hood Express, which we connect with here in town, which you heard earlier in the evening. Our Sam Estacada route is a smaller route that goes to or ends at Estacada City Hall, where again, we connect with Trimet. And we have a Sam in-town shopper shuttle. So that shopper shuttle began in about 2017. At the end of 2017, we were having a really hard time staying on schedule with our dial-a-ride service because there was such a demand for our service, and we had stopped allowing for same ride scheduling because we couldn't fit people in the schedule. So we took a good look at the dial-a-ride ridership patterns, and we developed just a little 3-hour deviated route around town that was targeted at the population that was using our dial-a-ride system. And we were lucky enough to get an STF discretionary grant to cover 3 years of that route. And it also covered a vehicle, which is a beautiful little red trolley that everybody loves. So it's been a wonderful addition to Sandy's routes. It does deviate, as Todd mentioned earlier. Both Estacada and the in-town shopper shuttle can deviate into the general public if for some reason you aren't right on the route and can't get to it. We did expand that route to a 5-hour Monday through Friday using STIF funds, but I'll probably talk more about that later. We also have a dial-a-ride, a dedicated dial-a-ride. It's open to the general public, so you don't have to qualify to use it. It is used to cover ADA rides for those people who do qualify, so they take priority in scheduling, but it is open to the general public within 3 miles of the center of town. So it's a little bit outside of the city of Sandy. And then we also provide non-emergency medical rides. So those rides that are at OHSU or the VA for services that someone can't receive within the city of Sandy. We also work really closely with our senior center. I know you heard a lot about the senior centers earlier, but we all work really hard and try to work so collaboratively to make sure that everybody who needs a ride can get a ride. So there are areas outside of my emergency medical rides program that is that county program that picks them up and gets them where they need to go. And sometimes where they need to go is Sandy. And we will do that on behalf of the community center. So we have a great partnership with our senior center to cover those rides. During COVID, we were able to step in for about 9 months and help them deliver Meals on Wheels every day of the week except Friday, because they had, such a problem getting volunteers during COVID or being able to utilize volunteers during COVID. So we have about 123,000 rides were provided pre-COVID. We had a little bit of a drop off. We were still well above 100,000 the year that COVID hit, and I believe we've dropped down fiscal year 21 to about 76 or 77,000 rides. So we've really been we have not dropped any hours of service. We've kept our continuous schedule and really didn't see as big of a drop as with COVID restrictions and with the shutdowns. I thought that we might experience a bigger drop in ridership than we have, but it seems that we're already starting to rebound, which is a really good thing. So as you can see, with STIF funds in 2019, we expanded those 3 fixed route services that I've told you about. So we added evening runs to Gresham, Estacada, and our shopper shuttle. Every year we do onboard annual surveys, and every year the response is that the number one thing that they want is more service, particularly more weekend service and more evening service. So we've really tried to meet their needs and add some additional service with those STIF funds. And with those increases, as you can see, before COVID hit, we were really seeing some increases in ridership, 37% for SAM, 76% for SAM Estacada. And the shopper shuttle, we only added 2 hours a day to the shopper shuttle. However, we rerouted and added another loop to it that served the middle school and the high school. And we did that because STIF funds have a criteria that you will try to provide at least using a certain percentage of your funding, you will try to provide rides to students. And in particular, what they were looking for is after school transportation for those students who have after school activity and maybe the school buses aren't running anymore. And in rural areas, a lot of times students have a really hard time or can't participate in after school activities because it's so difficult to get home. And as you can imagine, trying to get home on the mountain. So I know that the Mount Hood Express also added some service to the schools for the same reason. But that really shot up our ridership in youth. As you can see, we went from 751 youth who rode in 1 year to over 2,000 the next year, just by adding that loop through by the middle school and high school. Okay, Teresa, you can move me on.
I am certainly trying. I swear.
Well, maybe
Hold on.
I can just start talking and you can bring it up for us when you get there.
Yep, trying.
So on my next slide, I specifically am going to show you some things that we have updated, upgraded, added, etc. with our STIF, our STIF funded improvements. We were able to put all new branded, the city just before House Bill 2017 went through a new branding process. And so we were able to update all of our bus stops and new logos for the new brand. We also renamed what used to be known as Star, was our dial-a-ride. We renamed it Sam Rides to bring it into the brand. We also, thank you, Teresa, we also added new computers and monitors, which I can tell you was so badly needed. We were like running a Windows Word program that wasn't going to be supported anymore. It was so old. And I know I had one tiny little monitor and now I have 2 nice monitors. So office staff and dispatch, we got new computers and monitors. Some of those things you just, they take a lower priority to getting people a really nice, seamless ride. So we also had some bus stop improvements where we put trash cans at bus stops, and we put solar light panels at bus stops. We got a new dispatch software, which is really helpful. It has a mapping component, so it can aid our dispatchers in hopefully schedule those rides a little more seamlessly. We also collect a payroll tax here at the City of Sandy. As Todd mentioned, some other agencies, the larger agencies, the state collects their payroll tax. Here at the City of Sandy, we collect it in-house at the transit department. So we updated our transit tax software, which more easily speaks with our finance department software. So we don't have 2 people entering the same data, which is really nice. We also were able to put Wi-Fi on our Sam Gresham route, and we actually added it to that beautiful red trolley that you see that beautiful little girl in front of there in that picture. So we have free Wi-Fi on our Sam Gresham route, and then we also have free Wi-Fi on our shopper shuttle in town. That's fairly new. It's been a city council go for a long time, and it was finally implemented in June of this year. We are in the process of moving and building a new shelter on Highway 26. It currently does not have a shelter. The shelter has been bought, and we're working on the plan to submit to Odot. Since it's on a highway, it can be a little bit more complicated to move a bus stop. During this time, I also want to say that these are our STIF funded improvements, but during this time, we also had federal funds that we utilized to build 2 new bus barns. As Christina mentioned earlier, Mount Hood Express Clackamas County and the city of Sandy have had a long-standing, wonderful relationship where the two agencies operate out of our facility here, the city of Sandy, and to the customer, they believe it's the same service. We utilize the same contractor. They're in the same uniforms, and Mount Hood Express has been growing quite a bit, and the city of Sandy has been growing, and so we needed a couple new bus barns to keep all our beautiful new buses in. We also had some federal funds that we used to renovate our bus wash that we have here on site that both agencies use, and then we also I just went totally blank. I was thinking about our relationship with Mount Hood Express and our contractor and telling myself, okay, you can't keep going down that road. You don't have all night. So I'll bring myself back around. We did complete our transit master plan. It was passed by our city council in April of 2020. So some of the projects that I hope makes it onto your list and you think about tonight is that in that transit master plan, they did identify a new route that would run through Boring, because Boring does not currently have transit service, and it's an area that's been recognized as needing transit service. So our planners ran a route to Clackamas Town Center through Boring and on Highway 212 and then down Sunnyside. So I hope to collaborate with my partners further in the future to try and stand that route up. It was also identified in the Clackamas County Transit Development Plan. And in both plans, SAM was recognized as an agency that should spearhead that route and get it started. So I hope to do that in the next couple of years. We also, through funding, were able to replace all of our peak fleet vehicles with new vehicles. So we procured and had arrive 7 vehicles during that time period. In the future, besides the route, we are looking at and have been setting aside STIF funds to add to our administrative building here. We've kind of run out of offices and training rooms. I've got an office in what used to be a training room, and so we're looking to add a driver break room and training facility here at the Sandy Operations Center. We want to join Dwight in his endeavor with electric buses or whatever we may find, hopefully electric buses. So we're looking at adding an alternative fuel fleet of vehicles here at the city of Sandy. And then we do have tablets, and as Todd mentioned, we do have the, Where's My Bus app and capability. We share that actually with Clackamas County. So once again, it's to the customer. They just pull up that app and we're both on there, and where's my bus and how quickly can I connect and transfer. So we are looking at possibly doing some upgrades to that technology, putting real-time arrival boards at the transit center. And then, as you've already heard, we're working with our partners for e-fare capabilities, and then the one-stop website for all of our partners. So we've got a lot of planning going on, a lot of planning. There's a lot of new projects in the vision around the mountain plan that have been identified for the city of Sandy that we're currently working on finding funding and moving forward on those projects as well.
Andy, in the interest of time, if you could wrap up your presentation.
You got it. Thanks, Chris. Okay, Teresa, I think I'm on my last slide anyway. So I did not break out my federal funding for you, but as you can see, about 49% of my funding are federal funds. Those are grants that we receive. About 17% are state funds. So that's my STF and my STIF. That local that you see there at 30% is our payroll tax that I mentioned that we collect in-house. And then fares was about 4%. We are free in town. If you leave town, it's $1. If you board our service out of town, so if you get on in Gresham to come here, it's $1. But in town, our fixed routes are free. Our dial-a-ride is $1 if you're in town and not ADA qualified. And our medical rides are $2. We've been free for a year and a half. We will begin collecting fares again October 1st. And I believe that's all. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties I've been having this evening and your patience with that, but let me wrap it up with a couple of final thoughts. I really just want to emphasize the role that transit plays in everything from addressing traffic and safety concerns, providing access for everything from students to seniors and persons with disabilities, and also the environmental impacts that are involved in running services where we're grouping rides, reducing emissions, and generally experiencing beneficial impacts in terms of transportation safety. We really do continue to have some unique opportunities to align many different projects to build on the work that's been done in the transit development plan, the individual transit master plans that have been worked on in each community, and then other larger planning projects like the ones Andy mentioned, the Vision Around the Mountain, and the current update that's going on with the Mount Hood multimodal. So we all continue to work together on these planning projects to move things forward. So last thought, we continue to express to you all that this is our chance to change. We need to keep the momentum going forward, and that if we continue to build on the partnerships that we have developed among ourselves and among our communities, the end result is going to be a more comprehensive transit solution for all of the residents here in the county. Thank you again, and have a good evening.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I really want to just say thank you to all of our providers. They're making every dollar go very far and providing service and connections. I really appreciate the collaboration. Chris, thank you for putting the questions in the chat. And we'll just go a little bit over. Just love to hear any thoughts. If any of those questions resonate with you, jump on in. Mayor Drinkwine, you're on mute.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, guys. This is a great presentation. I love this. You're putting this out and what you're trying to do with all the areas, and you've included several of them. Estacada is growing at an extreme rate, and we have managed to put in a lot of roads and sidewalks and everything. The infrastructure is there. But what we're having a problem is we have the 30 that comes here, and that's essential. We use it all the time. A lot of people are traveling back and forth to work. We also have Sam out of Sandy, our sister city, which has worked very well for us to get shopping and stuff like that done. What we're lacking in at this point is a route to Clackamas Community College, because we have so much young people moving into our area that are taking advantage of the university or the college. And they don't have a route that gets them there in a sensible time. It takes 90 minutes, and they leave at 6:22 in the morning to get to a class by 8 o'clock. That's kind of a long bus ride, let's just say. And I would like, if it's possible, to maybe consider that a route that would work that we could all talk about in the Estacada area. And I think that's something that I wanted to bring up if we could. So thank you.
I can actually answer that if I have just a minute to do so. That is addressed in our transit development plan for Clackamas County, and it's something that I have started to have some preliminary conversations with both South Clackamas and Sandy and others, and we've all internally talked about the fact that utilizing these stiff dollars moving forward to make some of those critical connections is going to be really important. So how can we tweak, Andy's service that goes to Estacada already, and maybe tweak South Clackamas service slightly so that they can meet somewhere in the middle and get those students to a place like Clackamas Community College? Or how can Clackamas County expand some of our shuttle services to fill those gaps? So it's definitely on the horizon. Those
Good.
Things take time to coordinate. And, with the stiff funding cycle, we put projects together 2 years in advance, right? So we just put projects together for the 21-23 funding cycle, but coming up on that next round, I think there's going to be more importance placed on that collaboration between the small transit providers and filling some of the really critical gaps in Clackamas County.
Good, thank you. I appreciate that.
Great. Looks like Rick Cook from the Stafford Hamlet's up.
Great. Appreciate the presentations tonight. Really great work. Question maybe for Dwight, because this is really going to impact all of us, but maybe some of us in this region a little bit more of how do you guys pre-plan for the multiple transportation and construction projects that are going to go on? Starting with Odot and I-205 going to start at the bridge. That's going to cause more, cut throughs for Willamette Falls, Stafford, all those. And then Clackamas County is doing one of the vehicle registration fees things on Stafford Road starting 23, 24. And it is going to take, Stafford Road, Rosemont, Childs, Johnson Roads, lots of time. It might be within a year span. So that's going to impact a lot of the transit on Borland, on Eck Road, in that whole area. So are there any ideas what we should be doing now about pre-planning and how to work that into your system where your buses are going to be going like, oh, they're going to shut Stafford down for a day. What do we do?
Yeah, no, I think that's obviously a very good question. And we work very closely with not only Odot, we've got a major pipe project, some of you may know, going through Wilsonville right now. And this is probably a year and a half away. And we're already sitting down with the companies that are involved in planning because it will impact some of our services. And so looking at, we've got service, we're preparing for Borland Road as part of that collaboration with Washington County and Ride Connection and Clackamas County and SMART. Stafford, making services available right there at the 205 in Stafford is part of that plan as well. So we're working, I met with Odot today on some of the bus on shoulder project that we're collaborating with them on I-5, and we talk about the I-205 and the need for that service as well. And so in my mind, as soon as we implement this service in November on the I-5, then I'm going to be anxious to get started on the next project. But yeah, we work very closely with those folks, and it's never too early to start looking at those things and start planning. And part of the way we do this is meetings like this. And I hear from all of you. And if it's something that SMART it makes sense for us to be involved in, then we want to be involved in. We want to be on the front end of those plans and working with our partners, our regional partners on those things.
I'll send you a list.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, Dwight.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have Martin Myers, followed by Councilor Pratt.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Great presentations, everyone. I appreciated a lot of really good information. Mayor Drinkwine's comment segued right into what I want to address, if I could, real quick. I'm in Redland, which is right between Estacada and Oregon City, and I'm aware of Christina's what she commented on the transit plan, future transit plan, that they're talking about a route through Redland and between Oregon City and Estacada, which is great. There's a little bit of pushback in the community, but by and large, people up here are interested in it. I know that you're doing this in other areas too. It's not just Redland Road. It's, I believe there's a 213 perhaps. There's other places where the county intends to reach its transit out to the rural areas, which is of course about half of the county's population. The only thing I would ask that if you do is, as part of that process, one of the things that out here people have expressed a lot of interest in is, first of all, not have it be just a flyover, that it not just be a stop in Estacada with a stop in Oregon City, that there has to be stops in the rural areas also. And I think that's really important to integrate and to bring some of this transit money out into the rural areas. The second thing is dial-a-ride seems to be almost custom made for the rural areas. There's more money that has to go into it because there are longer commutes involved, but there's very little, if any, transit money being spent in the rural areas. So I'm hoping, and I'm making another pitch: one, don't make us just a flyover, and two, please give some consideration to the dial-a-ride open to the general public for people out here. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Pratt.
Oh, well, first, I just wanted to thank Trimet for looking into those express routes from Clackamas Community College and Clackamas Town Center out to Tualatin and Tiger, because those are desperately needed. And my question is to Mr. Bashir, because you, like Tualatin, you're in a city that's partially in the Trimet district. So I'm just curious how the tax works. Do you get part of that TME tax from Trimet, or do you have a separate tax? Or I'm just wondering how that works on the employer side.
Yeah, and I welcome Trimet to chime in. We have a separate tax within Wilsonville, though there are certain businesses. I think one comes to mind is the prison there in Wilsonville that is actually in Trimet's district. And so they would collect the payroll tax from the prison, but the vast majority of employers right now are pay their payroll tax to SMART, or the city of Wilsonville. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. Any other questions? Again, they're all in the chat. If anyone has anything, I know that some of the topography in Clackamas County is very challenging. Whether it's Oak Grove, Jennings Lodge, West Lynn, Lake Oswego, Oregon City, where local shuttles are a big deal for us. I hear it in my neighborhood all the time, and that's having a local circulator that can take people from the steeper parts of the area to the main lines or to shopping or something like that. So, but that's my pitch for a local circulator. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, Councilor Sherman.
Thank you, Commissioner. So really, my question really is kind of addressing the expansion of Happy Valley on the east side of the city. And, we run into kind of a chicken and egg scenario in that area that, as we are required to increase density, we need to have more robust public transportation, but of course the public transportation doesn't get expanded unless we have that ridership. And so really a lot of this really revolves around how do we make those incremental changes to increase that ability. So, I think Commissioner Savas, you brought up the shuttles operating down in the industrial area. And, those are a big plus in our area. And we found that, some of the other expansions of like the lift service, kind of the various services that provide that 3/4 mile additional transportation around the routes works great in many areas. But like in Happy Valley, our main transit route is 155 that runs along Sunnyside from Clackamas Town Center to 172nd, which is our largest expansion area. The bulk of the city is more than 3/4 mile off that route. So we're not getting any service for the vast majority of our residents. So, again, kind of the question is, how do you expand those types of things? And then the final question I'll throw out there, since I can, is as we improve those, it also requires, and right now our line is a 30 to 40 minute headway on each of those routes. How do you get that to a 15-minute turnaround time? How do you improve the amenities like bus shelters and lighting and things like that really are important as we expand that into these new kind of downtown core areas? So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
And thank you for that question. If it's okay, I'm going to answer the second half first. In regards to increasing the frequency of service on the existing service to Happy Valley, line 155 on Sunnyside Road. Actually, literally weeks before the shutdown, we had a proposal online. You can actually still find it online to increase service throughout the region. And one of the lines that we did mention was line 155 and upgrading that service so it does come more frequently. Then, COVID hit and that set us back. But it's certainly a priority for us when we are able to get out of the pandemic and restore our service back to 100%. That proposal is towards the top of the list for us and something that we do want to see happen. In regards to shelters, of course, we want to put shelters where people are going to ride. And so, typically we have a threshold of how many people per shelter. So for example, our threshold typically has been 50 boardings per weekday. Actually, I instructed my staff recently to lower that to 35. So, and what you find, particularly for a line like 155 going to Happy Valley, is as you get towards the end of the line, when you're going eastbound, you really don't want to have shelters out there because people get off the bus. Fewer people are waiting for the bus to go further east because the line is coming towards the end. And so what you find is you'll have a lot of people getting off, but not a lot of people getting on. So those stops they don't require shelters because people get off the bus and they walk away. But it's the other direction, going westbound, is where you do need the shelters. And then lastly, of course, we need we need a wide enough sidewalk to be able to put those in. Regarding your first question about density and the service, and you're absolutely right. I mean, that's been the challenge, right? We need customers, and none of you as public servants want to pay, put taxpayer money into a service and not have people use it. So we need customers, but you also need service. So I think it's really about planning and working together about your future plans, and we're having your staff work with us, and then we can plan ahead. A perfect example actually is Happy Valley Crossroads. We became aware of that development through your staff, and communicated with them, and made the plan so that by the time Happy Valley Crossroads had opened, I won't say we were there on opening day because I really don't remember, but we were there pretty darn close to opening day, able to have service extended to it. So I think we just more coordination with your future plans.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I will. I know we ran a little bit over. This has been a long overdue conversation, so I really appreciate all the input, and we'll move on. So, Chris, you want to take over the C4 retreat update?
You bet. So, C4 retreat, you will recall, I believe this was discussed back at your August meeting, but around that time and shortly thereafter, with the Delta variant and worsening conditions with the pandemic, staff put out a poll to the C4 membership to gauge interest in, what attendance might look like at a in-person retreat, and the results were mixed and showed an increasing number of you who were not comfortable with attending in person due to safety concerns. So in light of that, and just in the vein of wanting to be cautious, the C4 Executive Committee and staff agreed to cancel the in-person retreat here in a month. But you do have a decision to make, and you can find more information on page 40 in your packet. You have a couple options for how to proceed. One is to still hold a retreat, albeit virtual, on October 1st, which was one of the 2 days that had been slated for the in-person retreat. And in addition to that, consider reserving an outdoor venue for some kind of evening social gathering for those who feel comfortable meeting. So that's one option. The second is to just return to business as usual with C4, returning to your regularly scheduled meeting in October. I believe that would be October 7th. And in the memo, you'll see that staff have laid out how the topics could be handled under both approaches. Either way, transit is a key topic, no matter which direction you go. So defer to this group that does need to make a decision tonight on which option you would like to go with.
Comments? I know we beat this up quite a bit, and no one anticipated this crazy COVID outbreak to be as severe as it is, but I think it's a responsible thing to do to cancel the in-person one. So just a thumbs up maybe. Is there an appetite to have some form of a retreat? I mean, let's just verify that. Thumbs up somehow. Okay, I see 1, 2. Okay, great. Chris, you laid out a couple of those options. And you said we don't have to really decide that tonight. Is there a way maybe we can poll and survey everyone in the coming days?
So you do need to decide it tonight so that staff
Okay.
can plan. If this group decides to still do the retreat, it would be virtual, but staff would need the lead time to be able to plan for that on that Friday, October 1st.
Okay. Thoughts, folks? Mr. Silva, and then followed by Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, as a board director for the fire district and also a Portland Fire Lieutenant paramedic, I'm going to be very clear. This is the thing. You have reporting from hospitals that they're overran with patients and so on. We are the leaders of the community, right? And so I think that we need to be very careful about meeting in person. And I think we need to be conscious of the fact that there is a huge spread of the virus going on. And I just want to share that. I mean, I totally understand that we could meet in our backyard, blah, blah, blah. But at the same token, this is something where the people are looking at us. And if we're meeting for a social get together in a pandemic that's still not resolving, and we get reports from hospitals being full, we need to be very cautious of that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Real quick, first of all, I completely mirror Matthew's comments. I'm very much concerned about this. The hospitals are quickly filling up. I'm afraid October 1st is going to be a hard time in Clackamas County. I have no appetite to meet in person, even for a social event, but I know that other people do. I'm wondering, perhaps, as long as we're doing maybe a show of hands, is there interest in that aspect of it? I like the idea of having a retreat, a virtual retreat, and then the next meeting, our C4 regular meeting the next week. That's a good way to get it out there and get it done. Are people interested in having a social event, and what would that look like? How do people feel about that? Anybody have any thoughts on it? Is it not anything that appeals to anyone? I'm not seeing. Go ahead.
I think we'll try and do a straw poll here in a little bit. Those are good questions. And I see Mayor Hodson's got his hand up, so I'll take his question and we'll just try and do a poll. We'll just narrow it down that way. Mayor Hodson.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate it. And looking at the two options, I mean, frankly, I don't know about many of you, but doing a 4-hour Zoom meeting is a lot. Zoom fatigue is a real deal. I sit in not just city council's meeting via Zoom that tend to go long, but just with work and whatnot. I think Zoom, we lose, things get lost in translation. I get it, the whole not doing it live and in person. I totally understand that. Me personally, I would be more for the the other option there of just keeping it amongst, breaking down the topics and doing it at the C4 meetings that we've got outlined there, and see where it takes us in the future here, or where the current COVID situations take us, and try to regroup then. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Mayor Stemple.
I was a big fan of an in-person gathering, but now I'm not at all. It's too dangerous. I'm married to a firefighter and I hear the horror stories. I just don't think that it's responsible for us to do that.
Yeah. And the other thing I think if we did have an outdoor event, then, it's hard to know what the weather is going to be that particular day in October. So there's uncertainty with that. So, Mayor Kaiser, I see you got your hand up.
I tend to agree with Mayor Hodson. One of the things that a lot of us mayors have to deal with is a lot of us have day jobs. So sitting through a 4-hour Zoom meeting and taking an entire day off from our day jobs, which actually does pay our bills, I think just resuming business and keep going with what we're doing is probably a real good bet.
Okay, Mayor Buck.
I'm in support of having the virtual retreat, and if staff can work to, put it on like others have done in a way appropriate, for Zoom, so we're not just kind of sitting here in the room the whole time. I think we could be productive. Maybe it doesn't have to be as long as it would be otherwise.
Okay, so I guess there's an option here that maybe isn't really presented, and that is if there was a Zoom retreat on a Saturday morning versus a weekday, like a Friday, would that be something that people would entertain or feel more positive about? Because it sounds like we're going to be interrupting people's workload. So I see a couple heads nodding up and down. Councilor Pratt.
I'm wondering, originally this was scheduled for Friday afternoon and Saturday, if maybe we could have a short session maybe later on Friday afternoon and then one on Saturday morning, if that's an option.
All right. Mr. Silva, is your hand still up from previously, or did you want to raise your hand again?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're all over the map. We have 4 options now. So let's just say that. So the thumbs up for I think, which is the least likely. So let's just rule this one out. So the first option, have the retreat on Zoom and then have a social event afterwards. It sounds like that's not really in the card. So anyone that's dead that really wants to see that happen, just a thumbs up that you're all for that. I'm going to switch pages here because I can't see everyone on Zoom. All right, I don't see anyone there, so we eliminated that. Next option is having a Zoom on a Zoom retreat, a 4-hour retreat on a Friday, and I'm going to ask the same question for a Saturday. So just thumb counts. How many for a Friday? I don't see any. All right. How many for a Saturday? Okay, I see thumbs up for a Saturday retreat. And the other option was to go back. That's in the chat, not in the chat, but in the memo at the end. The other option was to just not have the retreat at all and simply just go back to our normal C4 meetings and have the presentations there. So thumbs up for that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think the Saturday morning Zoom retreat has the most amount of, not by a lot though, but has a majority of the thumbs up. So is anyone have a problem with the Saturday morning Zoom retreat?
Excuse me, Commissioner, if I can ask, I think we had another option, 2 hours on Friday and 2 hours on Saturday. Have we voted on that one yet?
No, we haven't. Okay. I'll bring that one back up here in a minute.
Sorry.
So no one has a problem with a Saturday Zoom of some sort. All right. And Mr. Myers, thank you for bringing that up. Anyone thumbs up for a Saturday or for a Friday and a Saturday? 1, 2, 3. Ooh, okay. So, okay, Mayor Kaiser, you mentioned that Friday would not be good for you, but I see you just put your thumb up on that one. Could you enlighten me a little bit?
Well, take it. The way it was brought up was like a late afternoon, a Friday late afternoon. I can get off. I mean, it's not hard to get off work early. Doing a 4 hours in, morning or early afternoon where you have to take the whole day off is a lot different.
Okay. So a late Friday and a Saturday. One more time, thumbs up. Okay. Okay, I think we landed on that one. Is that, Chris, are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah, that looks good to me. And one other point of clarification, I believe how we've done these in the past is when we've had the retreat, we then don't have the following month's regular meeting. This group is welcome to still hold the October 7th meeting. We will do whatever you want, but it would be good to make sure we're clear on that point.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience through this. I know we've just been discussing this at every meeting I can think of for many months. So we'll see if this holds. Next up on the agenda, and again, thank you for, I know we're running late, folks. We'll just get this, we'll just knock this out. Jpac impact updates. So I'm gonna start with Jpac, Councilor Heisey.
Do the 30-second download. We talked about the regional congestion pricing study again. We heard a report about safe routes to school, RAFA money. They had $1.5 million to spend over 3 years on programmatic stuff. There were some really interesting and innovative projects that they came up with. And then we heard a little bit about an active transportation return on investment study that is really looking to understand better what the economic benefits and impacts are of active transportation investments. And so far, the feedback looks like it's a really good return on investment for those kinds of projects. So if you want to hear more about that, you can contact me offline.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Who wants to do the impact update?
I can do that. We didn't have, I'll be honest, I can't even remember the last meeting that we had, but we have a robust agenda coming up for September and October at MPAC. Housing discussion in September, including an update on the Metro Housing Bond. Also kind of a brief discussion about housing needs analysis amongst the cities. And then in October, more on housing, but also 2040 planning and development, grantee highlights, and regional mobility policy update.
Okay, thank you. And the next up is the climate action plan. I do know we have at least Councilor Pratt who sits on that. Is there any update there?
Yeah, our last meeting, we looked at greenhouse gas emissions, current and future by sector. And what was surprising there for some people was that transportation is not the largest and what is expected to go down because of new technology, but that consumption is the largest. And they're projecting by 2050, that'll be over half of our greenhouse gas emissions. And we were left with homework to start looking at actionable steps.
Okay, thank you. And we have an Odot tolling project update. Mr. Pryor.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I ate all my popcorn and put my 3-year-old to bed during the meeting, so well done there. But I'll be coming to you soon. So that the I-205 toll project, we're going to start to get more data out of that over the next 4 months. So I'll work with Clackamas County staff and you all to get you a plan to where Odot can come to you. Maybe we'll start up that C4 diversion subcommittee that was meeting there for a little bit. But then also in areas like, work with the cities and even down to really the neighborhood level on where we're seeing diversion out of the modeling to really make sure we get the impacts correct. And then and then work with Christina and the other good folks you heard on the transit world today on seeing what those solutions can be in addition to those investments. So thank you.
Okay, great. How recent was the adding the Camby, the 99E to Camby piece of that study and diversion? How recently was that added, and when do you expect to have some results on that one?
So I'd say that's probably a few months ago, we added that to our intersections list, but here within the next 2 to 3 months, and then that's what I'm trying to line up and get data to you all. We're going to start to run those modeling numbers again and see what's going on in Camby.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions or any other business, folks? I thank you for indulging us for the extra time on that transit discussion. Thank you all. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Good evening.